Alright, being 5:15, I call the Personnel and Finance Committee meeting to order. I'll stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Moved.
Second.
Motion made by, who made the motion? Bob, sorry, seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consideration of the ambulance contract for 2024. Chad?
So in your packet, we have included the ambulance service agreement with Gold Cross for another year. This is an annual contract that we consider. The last page, you can see all the communities that are in the consortium for the ambulance contract. The ambulance contract is anticipated to, or will, increase slightly. Last year, it was a $12.84 per capita. This year, they're showing a $13.17 per capita, and they show a little bit of a history. They've been averaging, right around the 10. Obviously, during COVID, there was a big spike in there just because of the amount of subsidy that they were getting through trips. Because every time they transport somebody, they do get some type of revenue in for that. And during COVID, there were quite a few less people using the ambulance. So they had a lot of revenue that they were losing. So we had to make up for that. But now with inflation and other factors, they're looking at going from $12.84 to $13.17. That is an increase for the city. Last year's contract was $96,184. This year's contract is going to be $98,577, an increase of $2,393. One of the reasons for the increase is not only because of inflation. Town in Farmington had a decrease in their population because this is all factored in by per capita. Farmington had a decrease. Last year, they had 3,757 residents in their community. This year, they have 3,497. They have a decrease of 260 people. And that's primarily due, I found out, that the King Veterans Home, sounds like they closed a couple buildings and they don't have as many residents at the King's Veterans Home anymore. So that really decreased the population for Farmington by over 200 people. Thus, that per capita cost was spread around between all the other communities in the consortium. One other point I want to make out for the ambulance contract, which is not in here because Gold Cross is actively working on it right now. The Village of Shiocton has requested to jump into the consortium. They had their own ambulance service for years. They're struggling to, just like a lot of other businesses and services, they're struggling to keep it afloat. So they have asked to jump in with our consortium. Unfortunately, when you do that, does, the appropriate word is not dilute the service, but it spreads out the current number of ambulances that we have over more people. It doesn't justify adding in Shiocton, doesn't justify adding another ambulance in the consortium because the cost would be quite a bit more to the consortium. But what they're going to do is instead that additional revenue that Shiocton can bring in and help relieve the service. Sounds like Gold Cross gets quite a few non-emergency van type services to transport people from like the hospital home after hours. So the ambulance is getting used quite a bit for non-emergency transports. So what they want to do is consider bringing in like a non-emergency van into this consortium area so that that van service is actually transporting people at a cheaper rate than using the expensive ambulance to do it and tying up an ambulance for a non-emergency call and leaving it open for when it's needed. So those are some things that are kind of going on in the consortium with Gold Cross. But unless there's any questions, we do have to have this approved and sent to the council to sign the ambulance contract for another year. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the ambulance contract agreement.
Second. Made by Tim, second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the 2024 budget ordinance. Judy?
So as part of our budget process, we need to pass an ordinance at the finance committee that will move on to the budget hearing. That is the last Tuesday of this month. So this budget ordinance, or this ordinance, supports the 2024 budget that was presented last week, Wednesday, to all you folks. So I do have the budgets here if you want to take a look at them, but it does, all the numbers tie out to what I presented to you last Wednesday. In particular, we have $8,326,000 in general fund revenues, tying out to the expenditures of $8,326. There's our increase in equipment maintenance. Capital fund continues at $500,000. Our wheel tax of $130 that will be taken in and spending, and then the debt service of $1,049,438. So again, approved tonight and then move forward to public hearings. I think it's the 28th, but it's the last Tuesday. Yeah, last Tuesday of the month, which will be in here prior to economic development. So there'll be 2 meetings to approve the budget. The council meeting and then the commission meeting for the sewer budget. All of those have been put in the paper for the 15-day required publication. And then we'll meet again on the 28th.
Make a motion that we accept the 2024 budget ordinance.
Second. Motion's been made by Bob, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On the finance director's monthly reports. Judy?
Okay, so we are in the month of September for presentation of budget information. So on the expenditure side, we should be at approximately 75%. So when we go down, I like to use this one because it has just a little bit more detail than the other one. You can see that we're running, a little high in insurance, but that's normal because we pay it all at the beginning of the year. Actually, once we go into 24, you'll see insurance is at 100%, and then it kind of comes down over time. But everything else is running under the 75%. Social services, most of that is fireworks. All of that, most of that has been spent. And then here we sit at maintenance at 96%. So we have about $5,000 left in there. And again, we did increase that by 15,000 going into next year to hopefully mitigate some of those increase in supplies, costs of maintaining our equipment going into 2024. But otherwise, everything is running within normal 75% range. The cable is running high, but again, we have designated funds for the difference. So far, everything is looking well. Does anybody have any questions on any expenditures for 2023? And we'll move on to the revenue side. I did talk about the fact that our payment in lieu of taxes from the utility is not going to be what we budgeted for in 2023, but I anticipate that the additional interest that we will be taking in for 2023, you can already see we're at 73,000, will more than make up for the difference. When I presented the 24 budget, I did talk about this and then adjusted that payment in lieu of taxes downward by about 75,000 for next year. But again, it's very, it depends on the tax rate. So the tax rate fluctuates, not just the city tax rate, but all tax rates. So because we don't know, that's the hardest part about budgeting some of these numbers. We don't know what the overall tax rate will look like in the city of New London. I haven't even seen any other jurisdictions information for the tax levy yet. Those will be coming in. And I will do a final presentation on that next month, but I have not seen any of those levies, nor have I read anything about what they are anticipated to look like for next year. But again, I do expect us to collect 100% of the anticipated revenues. And again, the interest will more than make up for that line item. Any questions on that? And then we move on to the designated, assigned and unassigned fund balance, designated and undesignated fund balance, I'm sorry. And at this point, nothing has changed. One of the things I want to point out is, so I was looking at the detail of this long list of things that we are moving forward from year to year, mostly because we are having supply issues yet. This Ford Fusion, this 5,000 will go back into the maintenance side that was fixed. So I'll be adding $5,000 back into that. So that's a positive going into our next few months, last 3 months of the year. And here's the expenditure decrease from cable that I talked about, but otherwise none of these have changed since last month. And then we can take a look at wheel tax, and that is just an addition of a collection. So we are actually at 81,000. And we have not spent any of those dollars yet. And again, I talked about this last week when we were going to 2024. We do have a number of projects. I did write LRIP on here because I wanted to remember that. We did apply for a grant. So if those dollars come in, we are looking at utilizing some of this funding for that purpose. But otherwise there are, you know, downtown, North Water, there'll be decisions made more likely than not at Department of Public Works for where those dollars will be used. And then this also hasn't changed, but I'd like to continue to give you the schedule with all of the projects that we are looking to complete in the next couple of years here. Oshkosh Street and the downtown project, and then Mill Street up to 2027 borrowing. Our next anticipated borrowing date in 2027. I'm sorry. Oshkosh Street will be bonded for in 2025. Anyone have any questions on any of those, any budget related items, anything of that nature? All right, then I will move into my from the desk of, or for in the month of October. I just try to highlight some of the bigger things that are going on. Finalize the 24 budget, as you all know. I spend a lot of time putting that budget together and meeting with people and talking about things and making sure we're all on the same page about what that budget looks like. It's not just my budget, it's everyone's budget. That's why I appreciate so much that our department heads actually show up for the meeting and spend time within that meeting so that if you guys have questions of them. I also know that they're presenting to you, so it's not the first time you've heard or saw a lot of this information that's being presented to you. So we spend a lot of time working on that, and then I have to prepare the information for the paper once that is passed last week. Then Thursday and Fridays, I get the information in the paper, because that again has to be 15 days prior to the public hearing, which is on the 28th. I did spend also quite a bit of time with the auditors on our single audit, and that had to do with the CDGB funding and then the trail funding. So it has been a long time since I've actually had to do a single audit. And so we made our way through that. I attended the CIVMIC annual meeting. The membership is presented with updates on insurance products, programs, and services by CIVMIC staff. Department heads were requested to complete their 2024, not 3, capital projects. So we are working on that inside City Hall right now, trying to get our 10-year capital plan put together and then hone in on 2024. And then we have an internal meeting to go through and take a look at that information. And again, that capital projects and equipment meeting will be held following the December finance meeting. So we'll talk about any purchases that may need to get done prior to the end of the year. We are gearing up for tax collection season. It's hard to believe. It seems like you turn around and there it is. So number of us attended a meeting in Outagamie County to go through that tax program. And then Nicole went actually today to Wapaka County to that meeting. I couldn't make it because I had to be here tonight. So she attended for us and found out that it sounds like they are going to go to the same tax program as Outagamie County. So it'll be the first time in a while that we haven't been trying to run 2 programs simultaneously for tax collection. So cross our fingers, that's really where they go next year. So we'll be looking forward to that change in our office. And I really believe that there are some efficiencies that we can incorporate with that change. Some of the big mortgage payments that we should be able to download them and have them pre-station money. So I'll be looking into that. Didn't make any sense with us just having Outagamie County in the program because they're the smallest side of our city. But once we get Wapaka in that program, I'm looking forward to figuring out how we can be more efficient in our tax collection process. Also gearing up and thinking about our year-end processes. At this time, we start to think about all of the information and reports that we have to get to our state government, our federal government. Lots of things to do with payroll and year-end retirement balancing and all that kind of stuff. So we start to think about that. I participated in wellness meeting and activities. We began inquiring into automating our time tracking system. So we're spending some time, actually Stephanie in our office is spending more time than the rest of us, just taking a look at different time tracking systems to see if there's something out there that we may want to move forward in the future. Right now, I think I placed that on the 2025 capital list. I just don't think that we'd be ready for something that big. Stephanie has learning opportunities going into next year. So we'll work through that and then we'll think about something possibly in 2025 to also help in the efficiencies of our payroll system. Just a lot of inquiries and from our banking institution, they want to know how many checks can we put on one check, or how many tax bills can we put on one check, and all those kind of things. And Nicole actually handles most of that inquiry stuff and answers their questions as they come in. But that's where we're at when a lot of people are thinking about gearing down for the holidays. Our office is gearing up because we get extremely busy at this time of the year. Right through March when the audit happened. So in fact, right before I came in tonight, the auditor was emailing me and he's saying, when should we be there? Late March or early April. So we're thinking about that already too. Any questions about anything?
Judy, could you give a brief explanation what CIVMIC is again, just to remind everybody?
Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance Company. So we actually are a part owner of our insurance company. It's a pooling company. So there is how many communities? 57 communities within the state of Wisconsin, only state of Wisconsin based. So they are our liability insurance, they are fleet insurance, they are our excess liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, cyber insurance. So we are covered through CIVMIC. Now CIVMIC also has a whole nother side, and Chad has their homepage up right now. They have a whole nother side of an insurance company that you normally don't get. and that's training. So we currently have on our plate, all of us employees, full-time employees anyway, that we have to go through bloodborne pathogen training, hearing conservation training, and PPE training. So besides just being an insurance company that insures us, they want to make sure that we are moving forward also on the risk side. And in particular, I also talked about workers' comp when I was presenting the 2024 budget. We try to educate our employees, our department heads on keeping our premiums low by bringing people back to work. So there's a whole educational piece to CIVMIC besides just the run of the mill, buy an insurance policy from downtown. And they also specialize in municipalities. So police liability is a huge one. So they have people on staff to help us through anything in case something happens. So we have people we can reach out to ask questions of. So Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance Company, they are based out of Milwaukee. I actually sit on the board of the insurance company. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to do that. But it also helps us understand the insurance side of the city. I also know what those insurance rates are gonna look like before the average bear. So when it comes to budgeting, we know what those are. But the ins and outs and the changes, because there's a lot of changes in the insurance companies from year to year.
Thank you, Judy. I know we reference CIVMIC a lot, and I just thought we'd take the opportunity.
And there's all the communities that are members of CIVMIC. Anything else you can think of I should talk about? CIVMIC?
I think you were gonna touch your financial reports a little bit about financing the Hatton Park restrooms.
Oh, yeah, sorry, thank you. I have that here. Okay, so last night, at the Park and Recreation Committee meeting, there was an approval of $106,505 for the Hatton Park renovation. And I just wanted to touch base on that a little bit because I actually did go through and put together the financial information that Ginger did supply to you, and talk about the allocation of the funding. So one of the items was the allocation of the wastewater treatment plant dollars. Now, that money is actually currently budgeted, and it would be part of the $300,000 water main that we set aside every year in the budget. That's from year to year. We already have 700 and some thousand for the downtown project. So some of that will be used for the downtown. And then there was additional funding in there for us to be able to utilize elsewhere. So I believe it was, I can't remember exactly the dollar amount, but like I said, there's $300,000 set aside for water main and $80,000 set aside for laterals every year within the wastewater treatment plant budget. So those will be part of their normal operational budget. They won't go over budget to be able to pay for this, for the sewer portion of this. Now, the other portion is 2020 bond funding. I still have 3 projects on the table with our bonding. One is the library roof that we're working on right now. The consulting fees for Newton Blackmore Trail, that just got finalized I think at the end of last year. And then there was one more. Oh yeah. So Newton Blackmore, and then the ADA projects for the parks, this project. So we had $83,000 set aside for the project. We had some consultant fees that you saw that we took out that we'd already paid to McMahon. So there was some funding left from the Newton Blackmore Trail because we received an additional grant from the state of Wisconsin. So we're going to use some of that funding to pay for the $13,000 that it will cost to make the project work out. So and Ginger came to me and talked to me about, I don't know how we're going to fund this because we're over budget. So then we came together and talked about it, and I thought those were good uses of those dollars to get that project done. I think it'll be a great asset to our city to have those restrooms, not only new restrooms, but ADA accommodations, because there are strict laws for the state of Wisconsin, and what they want to see is that if they come into your community, you're at least moving forward to make your current facilities ADA accommodating. So this would just be one more of those items that we can point to that say we're moving forward with the accommodation area.
And it makes sense with the playground that's there.
So there shouldn't be any additional motions or anything that you guys will have to do in order to look at those dollars, because I know Chad was talking about, well, maybe we need to go back to Department of Public Works and have them approve it, but it's actually within their current budget. So it should be good to go for that project to move forward. I think they're still gonna do that this year, right?
She's gonna try,
Yeah.
at least start.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, how come, like on a Blackmore Trail, you got, say, $20,000 left over? Why can't you save that? Because we're not done with it. Instead of robbing it to do something else.
You have to.
Explain that to me.
You have to utilize bond funding within X amount of years. When I sign that paperwork, I tell them that we're gonna, there's certain thresholds you have to meet. The first one is 80% of those dollars, so I have to X on the line that says, this is our anticipated dollars that we're gonna spend through time. The only reason we are still holding on to this is because we met the last threshold that we spent 95% of the dollars in the first 2 years. But we cannot continue to hold on to money for the next Newton Blackmore Trail update. You have to spend those dollars in so many years.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Part of the problem too is arbitrage rules, so you can't make more money on your money. So otherwise, people, especially last year, would have taken out bond funds just to accumulate interest.
I just look for a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second. Made by Tim, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.